So I think you have to accept there's a.
Oh, yeah. All the rules on Zoom these days.
I know. All right. Hey, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm great, Ricardo. Thank you. It's a pleasure being on, buddy.
Awesome, man. Welcome to the show. It's really, really great to have you here. Well, we're just gonna dive right into it. Tell us about you, who you are, and what you do.
I appreciate that. So I am somebody that stumbled across digital marketing about 12 years ago. And I say that stumbled across it because I actually had a web development company at the tail end of the .com era. Kind of got in at the wrong time. But I learned a lot about technology, but things really rapidly changed in the early 2000s. And I was working in the market research industry, and I kind of dreamed of owning my own business, but I wasn't ready to go out and start my own company. So I moved into sales, and because sales was a very entrepreneurial role. So I was doing sales, and then I moved into sales leadership and was having a lot of success with that. But I always in the back of my mind said, I really want to start this company. And I'd had that experience with the web development company. So I thought maybe now's the time. So I negotiated out of a contract with the company I was in when my wife was 8 months pregnant at the time, 2009, the economy's in the toilet. And I went out and started my own company. And so I was doing sales leadership at the time, sales coaching, consulting. But all my clients kept asking, can you help with marketing too? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've got experience with marketing. Mm-hmm. And so my business just over time really started morphing towards marketing. I wasn't expecting that to be the direction, but that was where the demand was. Mm-hmm. And I found that there was just such opportunity, especially as e-commerce products were blowing up and internet marketing became more and more of a real opportunity. So that's really kind of the direction my business took me. And in terms of, my background, so I came out of marketing research after 26 years in that industry. Well, actually, at the time, I'd only spent about 20 years in the industry. And I launched a podcast show that actually first started as a live radio show. And I had this concept, this idea of I want to help people that are in that same boat I was. They were wanting to start a company, but didn't feel like they had the wherewithal to do it, the skills, the background. So I started a show called Business Ownership Success Strategies, which ended up becoming Boss Academy Radio. And Boss Academy Radio was very successful here in Dallas on AM radio, but AM radio is very limiting. I said, let's move this to a podcast. And I started doing it as a podcast, and that eventually became a top 10 business podcast show. And that show was really designed to give people success strategies to not only start a business, but if they had a business, giving them the tools, tips, and strategies to be successful. And a lot of what I brought into the show was the stuff I was helping my clients with, marketing support, but also, bringing in amazing expert guests. And as that journey progressed, unfortunately, I faced a real challenge in my personal life. I went through a divorce. It was a very painful divorce. I had to make some changes. So it's like I could let everything fall apart, or I could focus on saving my business and put the podcast on hold. So the podcast got put on hold, but here I am several years later, still doing the marketing and really enjoying the journey that I've been on.
That's awesome, man. What an incredible journey. And that's a lot of resilience and persistence in that. So congrats to you.
Thank you.
We talked a little about the tool that you wanted to share with us today. So we're going to go right into it and tell us about this tool. Sure. And what is it? And let's hear some info on that.
Yeah. So my digital marketing agency is called Sellience, and Sellience is built around this idea. Because I came out of a sales background and I started really doing more marketing. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to focus on marketing that drove sales, not just bringing in leads, because leads can be useful, they can be helpful, but often leads end up being something that doesn't convert for a lot of people. They have to have processes in place. So everything we were doing was centered around trying to drive sales. But there's one area of business that I think has really struggled, even though there's great opportunity there, and that's the e-commerce space. And I say it's struggled because you're going up against the 800-pound gorilla every day of Amazon or Google. You're going up against these mega companies that have buying power that's just dwarfs anyone that's got a Shopify store. And I looked at what was happening with people that have Shopify stores, which it's such an amazing place to be able to put up a business, put some products online, and really develop your own business overnight. But the problem with Shopify and other models like it is you're operating on small margins a lot of times. You're setting prices that are either equal or maybe even a little bit higher than Amazon, and people go out to Amazon and they're going to choose Amazon a lot of times over you. So I saw this opportunity in the e-commerce space. We created a product called Cartfeeder, and Cartfeeder is really designed around giving the small business owner that has an e-commerce store the same power that companies like Amazon and some of these other mega companies have in terms of the way that they go and do price matching and optimization.
Wow. So that's awesome. And so the same power. I mean, that's exciting. And so Cartfeeder, right? So what existed before Cartfeeder? Like if I wasn't using Cartfeeder before, or I'm using it right now, what would I basically be using then? What kind of tool existed to do that same thing, or nothing was there?
Well, the smaller shopping store, a smaller e-commerce seller, they often don't even realize there are tools out there. So they do static pricing, and they base their decisions off of traffic to their site. Now, traffic to your site is a nice thing, right? So I'm getting this number of visitors, they're staying on my site. That's wonderful. But are they actual shoppers? What's their buying behavior? What's the power that they bring to my site? So you really should be measuring off of the right buyers. You should be measuring off of the right traffic, and not just off of static numbers of people coming to your website. So in terms of what was there before, most small e-commerce stores are just basing it off of their Google Analytics data. They're going, oh, we're getting 1,000 visitors to our site a month. We must be doing something right. But are those 1,000 visitors converting to sales? Are they the right buyers? Do we have the right products? And is our pricing in the right place? And that's the challenge. So there are solutions that you can build on your own by lumping together multiple software platforms and managing it that way. But most, like I said, most e-commerce sellers are not doing any of that.
Awesome. And obviously this is for e-commerce sellers, but talk a little more about who is this really for? I have a small business. I'm just planning on starting a business. And a big part of that is an e-commerce website. Can we go into a little more about who exactly is a good target for this tool?
In all honesty, I think it's anybody that's competing against the likes of Amazon out there, because Amazon is doing a lot of the things that we provide on a daily basis in mass quantities. So for example, Amazon shopping, if you've got a product on Amazon, and Amazon, they use what's called spiders that go out and comb the web looking for that product, that same product, and what's it priced at. So let's say you're selling your product for $1.99 a piece, and Amazon has it for $2.17, and then you go out to Amazon one day and all of a sudden they're at $1.89. They've undercut you, and it's like, wow, this is unbelievable. And you drop your price to $1.89. Next thing you know, Amazon is at $1.79. Well, Amazon has processes that they go on, comb the web looking for those products and looking at pricing, and then they use dynamic pricing to always stay ahead of the competition. There's a great example of a company. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about Amazon versus diapers.com, but this is an amazing case study that just shows the buying power that Amazon holds. So Amazon was selling, obviously different home care products, and there's this company called diapers.com, which started selling diapers, delivering to home. And it was a great company. Well, Amazon approached them and said, hey, actually, they had somebody approach diapers.com and say, hey, Amazon's looking at getting in the diaper space. I would recommend you consider selling your company. and they didn't sell. They decided not to sell. And Amazon got into this space, and Amazon wanted to acquire diverse.com, but they didn't want to sell.
Mhm.
And so what Amazon did is they started undercutting, offering free shipping. They created different things that they were doing for moms. And diverse.com was, they were kind of stalling out. They're saying, hey, we got to consider selling. So they went and approached Walmart. They decided they were going to try and sell to Walmart. And then this battle went on, and eventually they were basically told that if you want to compete with us, now keep in mind, Amazon has undercut these people. Amazon over one quarter was willing to lose $100 million in revenue to squash this company. And eventually they negotiated back and forth, and Amazon.com ended up buying diapers.com through this acquisition, because they basically said, we will drive diaper prices down to zero if you don't sell to us.
Wow.
So now call it what you will, but that is some amazing control and power over a company that was having some success. I'm not saying that's going to happen to the average e-commerce seller, because it's not.
Yeah.
But we do have to understand that what's happening in the marketplace in the e-commerce space is there are some really powerful tools out there that are being leveraged by some of these big companies to always stay ahead of what you're doing. We're giving that same power to the small guy, and that's what we've done with Cartfeeder.
I love that. I love that. And you talk about dynamic pricing as one of those things that you can do with this tool. Anything else that you want to share that you can actually do with this tool? Because I could see so many different businesses would love to kind of use a tool like this to help them to stay on top, because there's so many sites out there now that are selling stuff, and so many of them are selling the same things. And so how do you keep up with the pricing? How do you keep up with what's going on in the other spaces? What else could we actually do with Cartfeeder?
Yeah, so now Cartfeeder is not a SaaS-based product, so it is really more of a service model that we've productized. And I say that because there's several factors that go into this. One of the things is we want to make sure that we not only have traffic coming to our site, but it's the right traffic. So there's things that we can do to identify people that are predisposed to buying online. Now, you might think in this day and age, well, that's everyone. Well, it's not. There's traffic out there that goes out to websites, looks at stuff, they abandon the cart, and they never come back. So we want to look for people that are already kind of predisposed to buying online, for one thing. So we drive the right traffic to your site. We want to make sure that your pricing is right. So we do this dynamic pricing. We go out and comb and look for competitive pricing, and then we make some determinations on what's the pricing that we need to set. Can we set that pricing without affecting your margins greatly? Because that's an important piece, because you can't be in a position as a small business to lose money. And I kind of skipped the one piece that I should have said before pricing. Do you even have the right products? So we were working with a company that had a Shopify store, and this woman had some fashion lines that she was selling, and she was selling these products, but her audience that she was marketing to were not really interested in what she was selling. She was selling stuff that was kind of younger, more teen type clothing, but yet she was marketing to people that were in their mid-30s and up based off of some of the criteria she was. So we had to help her align her audience with her products. And so that's an important piece. So it really comes down to just making sure we're finding the right traffic, the right pricing, and the right products to help you flourish. You know, there's tools out there like Shopify, which have really changed the game for people getting e-commerce. I use that as an example because it's one that a lot of people understand. But the way that Shopify gets paid, they get paid based off of a margin of your sales. And so that can be really prohibitive if you have low margins. And if you're trying to compete in a space where there's a lot of people selling the same products, and you're having to be competitive with pricing, well, you can basically price yourself down to the point where you're losing money and not even realizing it. So that's one of the things that we do, is we just really help bring this all together into a package where we can help you Just determine that you're doing all these things right and still maintaining margins that allow you to be successful. And if you're not, then you're either marketing in the wrong space or you have the wrong products, because there's always an opportunity to take and help transform
awesome.
what you're doing.
That's beautiful. I love that. And you know, for listeners who are interested in this sounds really great. I'd love to get connected to see how should we actually use this tool? What should they need to do to use this? Because I know you said it's not SaaS yet. I'm hoping that's come in, but you know, what should they do if they want to use it? Is there a freemium side to it? Like, talk to me about that business model piece, and what should listeners do to use the tool?
First thing I would do is tell you, go out to cartfeeder.com and check it out. Connect with me there. We do an audit, and that's part of the process. We want to audit what you're currently doing to make sure that what you have, you got the right things in place, you're going down the right path. So we provide a free audit as part of this process. And once we've gone through that audit model, then we'll come back and make recommendations. It's really, we've productized it, but it's so hands-on in a lot of ways that we have not been able to get away from the service model. At some point, there will be a SaaS product offering, but we're not there yet. And I think that's going to be some time, because there is a lot of moving parts in terms of e-commerce sales. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's great. So cartfeeder.com, and you can get an initial assessment on your site in terms of your e-commerce site, and then you'll be able to pick it up from there. That's pretty cool. Now, and I know staying in business for years is not easy, right? And so always curious to know, like, how have you done it? What would you say was the best thing, or have been the best thing that has happened to you since?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a very timely one, because I've been really thinking about this a lot. You know, my journey into entrepreneurship, it took me 26 years to start my own company. And when I did, it was really liberating and game-changing. It was something I dreamed about. And when it actually happened, it was an amazing experience. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, though. Being an entrepreneur is not easy, especially in this day and age when there's so much competition, there's so much noise in the marketplace. When I went through my divorce, I became a single father overnight. I went from having a wife who supported me while I worked those crazy long hours to having my kids 50% of the time. And on the days I have my kids, they're short days because I'm driving them around and picking them up. And I'd say the best thing that's come out of it is, freedom, confidence, flexibility. But at the same time, it's been a very difficult journey. And I would say that anybody that's on that journey, you know what it's like to feel alone at times. You feel like on the weekend, you're carrying that stress while your friends are off doing other things. And, you're waking up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this bill or take care of my staff? And there's a lot of burdens that come with owning a business, as you know, Ricardo. But I'd say for me, the one thing that's kept pushing me is I've always been a connector, and I've surrounded myself with amazing people. I've developed masterminds. I've been a part of masterminds. I've always surrounded myself with like-minded leaders who are on the same journey, because it's hard to feel alone when you're talking to somebody that understands your position. Like you and I, we've had conversations about business, and we both know that struggle is real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we know we're on the same path and we can bounce ideas off each other, it's really empowering. So I'd say the best thing that I learned was to not do this on my own, even if I am on my own.
Yeah, that is an amazing piece. And thanks for sharing that, and that connecting with other people and just knowing how to connect. It's so important, because you can feel so isolated, so alone, but business doesn't have to feel like that. It doesn't have to be like that either.
No.
And so you understand that piece of how to connect with others. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And listeners can really sort of take that away to say, just work on your connection. Just ensure that you're always connecting meaningfully, really, right? Because it's not about just sort of, spray and pray. Like, connect meaningfully with folks who you can talk with and talk with comfortably as well. And this is great. I really appreciate this, Paul. Now, is there anything that I did not ask you that you'd love to share with us?
No, but I want to step back and add something to what we just were talking about there. And I think a lot of people are really afraid to reach out and ask for help. And I know that I've been there at times, but for the most part, I've always felt like if I need help, I'm going to find a way of getting it done. And when I started my first company, I didn't know what I was doing. I came in excited, but really scared. I was like, okay, this is a lot of responsibility. I got a pregnant wife and I'm no money coming in the door. What am I going to do? So I went out and I created a personal board of directors. I went out and talked to some people that were people I respected. And so I had a couple of CEOs. I had a couple of, one person was a very seasoned sales executive. I had somebody that was a marketing exec, somebody that was in HR. I had like 5 or 6 people. I don't remember the whole list because it's been 12 years ago. But I think I had 6 people that I had made this commitment to. I said, look, will you serve as a personal board of director with me? Help me when I have questions and give me some direction. And I told them, be respectful of your time. And they every one of them was happy to do it because they wanted to see me succeed. If I had been fearful of making that outreach, I don't think I would have made it through the first year the way that I did, because those people were invaluable. Now, I didn't maintain that because I went in other directions of giving advice and support. But I think for me, if you own a business, you need to find a way of making sure that those areas you can't fulfill, you find somebody that can help support you or help guide you. There's a famous story about Henry Ford about how he was surrounded by experts in different areas. And he had a desk with a box with buttons on it. He would push buttons that would, if he needed somebody that was an accounting expert, then that person would come in to help support him. And I think that's one of the things that's really critical, not just getting support, but getting the right support, and don't be afraid to ask for it.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Thanks for sharing that. I feel like I need to get a button like Henry too. It's like I can have on my desk to just push to call for help, because we definitely do that a lot. Now, so and I always like to kind of ask some of the final questions, and I love to know what kind of books or guests are reading and what podcasts they're listening to. And Clubhouse is the new thing today too, so always sort of trying to figure out what kind of room you hang out in so we can come out there and hang out with you as well. So talk to us about some of the books that you're reading or have read that really spoke to you, and maybe podcasts. I know you do your own podcast. Would love our listeners to know what that is. And then the Clubhouse, like, where you hang out and where you kind of host your rooms as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I held off on getting involved in Clubhouse for the longest time because I'm not an Android, or I'm not an iPhone user. I was on Android, so I didn't get in early. But I am actually co-host of a room with a group called Co-Founders Lab, cofounderslab.com. They've got about 400,000 members in their community, and they are out there helping people in early stage startups be successful. And so they have a Clubhouse room where we talk about things like venture capital funding, e-commerce discussions, you name it. There's a lot of different areas of discussion. So look for Co-Founders Lab out on Clubhouse for one. One of my favorite books, and I mentioned this book a lot over the years, this book has made a big impact on me, and I just started reading it again. So Jillian Zoe Siegel, she wrote a book called Getting There, a Book of Mentors. And in there, she interviewed people like John Paul DeJoria, Warren Buffett. She interviewed a bunch of different either billionaires or multimillionaires, and every one of them had a make or break moment in their life. John Paul DeJoria, when he started Paul Mitchell, a lot of people don't know this, but he's living in his station wagon on the streets of San Francisco with his son. He basically had no money and was in a bad spot. And this actress he knew had found him and said, "Why are you doing living on the streets?" Because I got a room in my apartment. You can come live there with your son. So he moved in with her, and she had a British accent. So he always talked about how her answering machine at the time before voicemail had this British accent on it. So it seemed very refined. So people always thought that was his secretary. But here's a guy that was basically down to nothing, and now he's worth what, $3.5 billion today. And it's a book talked about all these people going through these journeys where they had to hit a low point before they could find a high point. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely had those low points. And those low points are where you either decide to call it a day or you move forward. And I don't have quit in me. I mean, Ricardo, there's times I probably should have quit, but I don't have quit in me. Yeah. And I think that that's so important if you're going to go out on your own.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And what the book is called, Getting There, is that?
Getting There, A Book of Mentors by Jillian.
Getting There, A Book of Mentors. Awesome, yeah. Awesome.
And then we just are launching a new show for founders, for co-founders lab, called Founders Voice. I had a top 10 business podcast show that was put on hold about 5 years ago, but we're just launching this new show. And the whole goal is to just bring some amazing experts to the table that can, help people get those tips, tools, and strategies to move their business forward. So very much like what you're doing in your space, we're kind of trying to do that for the people in the early stage startups.
Awesome. Great. I mean, love it. And we'll definitely check that podcast out. I want to read that book because that's I've never read that book before, so that's really a cool thing. And
you'll love it.
Check your Clubhouse. Nice. Thanks for sharing that.
It's an easy read too. So it's cool. But some of these people, it took 2 years to get them to agree to an interview.
Yeah.
But once she did, it's like she condensed it down into like these structured chapters. Incredible.
Nice. Well, we're always looking for creators and master users, Paul, of marketing tech tools or systems that they use to help their business grow. And we're always kind of asking our guests, who would you recommend as the next person that we should be talking to on this show that has that, that Meister usership, if you may?
I'm going to introduce you to Lydia Sugarman, who is the CEO of Ventive. Now, Ventive, VENTIVE.com, is a product that's they compete with companies like HubSpot, their CRM product. But in my opinion, for the pricing and for the features, it's much more rich than you're getting from a lot of her competitors. And she's a brilliant lady who has just done a phenomenal job of building up this brand. It doesn't have the name recognition that some of these companies like HubSpot do, but it's also just because of the approach she's taken for marketing. Nice. So I think you'd love talking to Lydia.
Nice. Absolutely. Would love to chat with Lydia, get her on the show and talk about that. That CRM piece is so important today in the business process. And so I'm happy to explore other options for listeners. Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate our time together today. Just having you here. It's really great. Continue to stay safe, and it's not going to be the last time, because we'd love to have you back and chat about Cartfeeder, just to see how things are going and how you are doing as well. So don't be a stranger, and we'll certainly keep in touch. And until next time, we'll definitely catch up again.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing in closing, Ricardo. I really respect what you're doing. You're a digital marketer, and you're providing this show as such a benefit to your listeners. And, a lot of people in your space would be very threatened to bring someone else from the space on. Yeah. But you've taken this selfless approach that I think really impacts your listeners in a positive way. So kudos to you. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And we hope our listeners do as well. That's exactly why we do it.
Thanks, buddy. Well, hey, have a great day, and I'll look forward to our next conversation.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Have a good one.
You too.